Imagine this. You're at the airport, excited, bags packed perfectly, ready for that long-awaited trip. You're gliding through the terminal, thinking everything is smooth until a security officer flags your bag. Suddenly your heart drops. You're thinking, what did I do? What changed? Did I miss some new 2025 rule? And here's the scary part. Yes, you probably did. Because 2025 has quietly become the year of new airline bans, unannounced airport crackdowns, and surprise security rules that are catching travelers completely off guard. And that's exactly why you need to know the 10 brand new banned or heavily restricted items you cannot bring on flights in 2025, items that were totally normal before, items you've traveled with for years, items you wouldn't even imagine could get you stopped. But now they can get your luggage pulled, your trip delayed, or even get you denied boarding entirely. Let's start with one that almost everyone carries: power banks. These humble little battery blocks used to be harmless. Everyone threw them in their carry-ons. You'd charge your phone mid-air, and nobody cared. But in 2025, power banks have suddenly become a high-risk, tightly policed item. And not because they're banned, but because airlines have made the rules around them incredibly strict. Here's the twist. Power banks are still allowed, but the way you pack them now matters more than ever. Several airlines no longer allow passengers to use their power banks on flights at all. Yes, no charging your phone mid-air. And many more airlines now require that power banks must not be kept in overhead bins. If you put your legal, perfectly normal, totally allowed power bank inside your overhead cabin bag, guess what? You can be stopped, questioned, or even denied boarding. The reason? Fires. Cabin crew want every lithium battery where passengers can see it in case it overheats, swells, smokes, or causes a fire. They don't want an unattended battery burning above your head. So now the rule is simple but surprising. Power banks must go in the personal item under the seat where you can reach it, not your roller bag, not your overhead carry-on. And if your power bank is over 100 watt-hours, roughly 27,000 milliamp hours, you must have airline approval before you fly. Some travelers don't know this and show up with a huge 30,000 milliamp hour battery, and boom, it gets confiscated. To stay safe, stick to under 20,000 milliamp hours and put it in your backpack or purse only, never in a roller bag. And always check the exact airline rules because they now vary wildly. Chaos, right? Speaking of battery-related drama, let's move to smart luggage. These techie suitcases with built-in chargers, GPS trackers, and electronic locks were once trendy and cool, but in 2025, the crackdown is harsh. If your smart luggage has a non-removable lithium battery, it's banned. No exceptions. Airports are now enforcing this aggressively. People show up thinking they're fine, only to learn their suitcase won't be allowed to fly. Some even try to pry the battery out with airport tools, causing chaos at the check-in counter. The rule: if the battery cannot be removed tool-free, meaning you can pop it out instantly with your hands, the bag stays behind. You can't check it. You can't carry it on. Zero tolerance. If you love smart luggage, you must be able to remove the battery before check-in and carry it with you. Honestly, the best strategy now is using normal dumb luggage and adding removable tech like AirTags or simple power banks. Now let's jump to the item nobody ever expects to be treated like a threat. Powder. Yes, protein powder, baby formula, coffee powder, spices, even ground up chocolate or drink mixes. In 2025, powders are now treated almost like liquids. Anything over 12 ounces or 350 ml triggers mandatory screening, and this isn't optional. Your bag will be opened. Agents may swab the powder, test it, or even confiscate it if it's unlabeled, looks suspicious, or is packed densely. Powdered explosives are the concern here, so airports are extra cautious. The safest strategy: keep all powders under the 12-ounce limit and in clear, labeled containers. If you're bringing spices or edible powders from a trip, put them in your checked baggage. Buy single-serving protein packets instead of carrying a giant tub. And always keep baby formula sealed or clearly labeled to avoid delays. Now let's talk about a strange new trend happening across airports worldwide. Cash is quietly dying. More and more airports in 2025 simply don't accept cash anymore. Not for parking, not for baggage fees, not at airline counters, and not even at many airport restaurants. Imagine being thirsty, wanting a water bottle, and the vending machine rejects your cash. Or imagine needing to upgrade your seat or pay for extra baggage, but the counter only accepts digital payments. Travelers are getting stranded, delayed, or forced to miss flights because they only brought cash. To avoid this nightmare, always carry at least 2 digital payment options, a debit or credit card, and a phone-based payment app. Cash at airports is now unreliable and often useless. Now here's one of the most controversial rules of 2025: clothing and dress code enforcement. Gate agents now have the authority to deny boarding to passengers wearing outfits they consider lewd, obscene, offensive, or simply too revealing. The problem: these terms are entirely subjective. One agent may think your crop top is fine, another may deny you boarding. People have been stopped for graphic hoodies, political slogans, very short shorts, visible swimwear, or tops showing too much upper torso. And if you're denied, you don't get a refund. You're forced to buy new clothing inside the airport at outrageous prices. The best approach is simple: dress neutrally. Avoid edgy graphics, political statements, or revealing clothing. Keep a jacket in your bag in case an agent questions your outfit. It sounds unfair, but it's happening more often in Another surprising ban: personal air purifiers, especially small portable ones. Not all of them, only the ones that generate ozone. These ozone-producing purifiers can interfere with aircraft electronics and degrade cabin air quality. Airports have begun confiscating them outright. Even if it's off, if it emits ozone, it's taken away. Instead, rely on the plane's HEPA filtration or use a mask if air quality is your concern. Next, let's talk about large electronics, gaming consoles, VR headsets, big drones, bulky camera rigs. These aren't banned, but they are now guaranteed to trigger extra screening. Their shapes are irregular and dense, making them nearly impossible to scan properly. This means mandatory bag searches, delays, and sometimes being forced to check these expensive, fragile devices. If you must bring them, put them in a protective hard case in your checked luggage. Carry removable batteries separately, and if carrying them on board, keep them at the top of your bag for easy removal during security. And now we get to one of the most shocking modern travel shifts, something people never expected to be treated almost like a banned item: the act of checking in without a smartphone. Sounds bizarre, right? But in 2025, airlines around the world are quietly transitioning to mobile app-only systems. Physical check-in kiosks are disappearing from airports because they're expensive to maintain. Some airlines even charge extra if you want a human agent to help you check in. And paper boarding passes, they're slowly being phased out in favor of biometric boarding. Your face becomes your pass. But here's the problem: if you don't have a smartphone, or if your battery dies, or if your airline app crashes right before boarding, you can be stuck. Airlines are increasingly refusing to check in people who don't have the app installed. This means you cannot get your boarding pass, cannot access your gate, and in some extreme cases cannot even enter the secure part of the airport. People have missed flights simply because their phone ran out of battery before they showed the QR code. The solution? Download the airline's app before you head to the airport. Check in as early as possible, usually 24 hours in advance. Take screenshots of your boarding pass so it's stored offline. Carry a compliant power bank in your personal item to keep your phone alive. If your phone is the new passport, treat it like one. Now let's talk about shrinking carry-on size limits, because this is one of the most infuriating changes of 20. For years, travelers learned the standard carry-on size around 22x14x9 inches. People bought bags based on that measurement. Well, airlines are now quietly tightening those limits, not dramatically, but just enough to make thousands of existing bags suddenly too big. And here's the sneaky part: they're enforcing these rules aggressively at the gate, not just at check-in. That means even if you pass security without a problem, a gate agent might suddenly stop you and ask you to put your suitcase in the metal bag sizer. If it doesn't fit even by a hair, you're forced to gate check it. And gate check fees are often higher than standard check-in fees. Travelers who thought they were prepared now face surprise charges and stress minutes before boarding. To avoid this trap, measure your bag yourself. Check each airline's exact limit because they no longer match each other. And for budget airlines, It's usually cheaper and less stressful to prepay for a checked bag than risk a last-minute penalty. And finally, let's talk about edible souvenirs, something millions of travelers love bringing home. In 2025, customs agencies worldwide have launched major crackdowns on food items because of rising threats from invasive species, livestock diseases, plant pests, and other biosecurity dangers. This means many foods that were previously allowed are now confiscated routinely. Fruits, vegetables, raw meat, dried meats, sausages, unpasteurized cheeses, homemade items. These are now high risk. Even factory-made items can get confiscated if they contain restricted ingredients. Airlines are also stepping in by banning certain strongly scented foods from cabin. Items like durian, fermented fish, or pungent cheeses may get you stopped before boarding. And the rules vary wildly depending on where you're flying from and where you're flying to. A snack allowed in Thailand might be banned entirely in Australia. A meat product allowed in Europe might trigger a fine in the US. If customs finds undeclared food, penalties can be severe, hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The best approach is simple. Research your destination's food rules before buying anything edible. Prefer factory-sealed, commercially packaged foods with label. And when in doubt, declare everything. Declaring food, even if it's technically banned, usually results in a simple confiscation. Hiding it, however, can turn into massive fines. So now that we've covered the full list of new bans and restrictions, let's go deeper into the real issue. Why are these changes happening all at once in 2025? Because airlines and airports are under more pressure than ever. Lithium battery fires have increased. Biometric systems are replacing old infrastructure. Security threats have evolved. Airport staffing shortages continue. Health consciousness after the pandemic changed traveler behavior. And digital dependency has become the new normal. And here's the bigger reality. Almost none of these rules were ever publicly announced in a big way. They didn't make headlines. They weren't shown on massive banners at airports. Travelers are finding out the hard way through bag checks, confiscations, missed flights, denied boarding, and unexpected fees. Imagine you're heading for your dream trip and you lose your power bank at the gate. Imagine your smart luggage gets rejected and you have to leave it behind. Imagine your expensive spices from Istanbul get seized at the border. Imagine arriving at your gate and being told your shorts violate dress code rules. Or imagine missing a flight because your phone battery died. These are happening every single day. And that's exactly why knowing these rules ahead of time is crucial. Not to scare you, but to protect you. Let's go deeper into each of these items, how the rules evolved, and real-world experiences from travelers who've already been burned by these new Think about how many times you've traveled with a power bank without even thinking about it. You toss it in your roller bag, zip it up, and forget about it. In 2025, that simple move can literally ruin your entire trip. That's what makes this rule so dangerous. Not that power banks are banned, but that the handling of them has become a massive point of failure for travelers. There have been several incidents in recent years where faulty or damaged batteries caused fires mid-flight. Even though these situations are extremely rare, airlines are taking zero chances now. Cabin crew are trained to respond instantly to thermal runaway events. That's when a lithium battery overheats and potentially catches fire, but they can only act quickly if the battery is within reach and visible. That's why airlines want power banks in your personal item under the seat. They don't want you leaving a battery abandoned overhead where smoke could go unnoticed. And here's where unsuspecting passengers get trapped. Many people store their power banks in the suitcase they carry into the cabin. They think it's carry-on, so it's fine. But cabin luggage goes above you. Personal items go under you. That distinction is what catches travelers off guard. One wrong bag decision, and suddenly you're pulled aside. Some airlines even do last-minute announcements telling passengers to remove all power banks from overhead back. People scramble, open bins, unload items. It becomes a stressful mess. And then there's the watt-hour limit. Most travelers don't even know what that means. If you flip over your power bank, you might see a tiny marking 7. Anything over 100 watt-hour technically needs airline approval. But here's what most people don't know. If an agent sees a battery with 120 watt-hour, they might not give you a chance to explain anything. They'll confiscate it on the spot. Some airlines won't even consider approval at the airport. They want approval before check-in. So best practice is sticking to under 20,000 milliamp hour, which usually equals about 70-75 watts, well under the threshold. Now, smart luggage. This is one of those categories that exploded in popularity. Stylish suitcases with GPS tracking, Built-in scales, USB charging ports, remote locking systems. People love them, but from an airline's perspective, it's a nightmare if the battery is stuck inside the suitcase. Imagine a fire starting in the cargo hold because a battery inside someone's bag overheated. Cabin crew can't reach it. Ground staff can't reach it. The bag is buried under hundreds of others. That's why they banned smart luggage unless the battery can be removed instantly. Airports in 2025 are enforcing this more aggressively than ever. If you show up with a suitcase that requires a screwdriver to open the battery panel, they will refuse it. People have been seen ripping open their brand new luggage in frustration. Some bags are simply abandoned at airports because passengers can't travel with them at all. So if you have smart luggage, check now whether the battery can pop out. If not, it's time to retire that suitcase. Let's expand on powders. Most people don't even think twice about throwing protein powder or spices into their carry-on. But powders have been at the center of several security concerns. Dense powders can obscure objects in X-rays, making it harder to detect dangerous material. Some powders can even resemble explosive substances in scans. So any powder over 12 ounces gets flagged, guaranteed. Imagine bringing home spices from Morocco or India, big packets of turmeric, chili powder, or masala. Those are dense, aromatic, and often unlabeled in English. Security agents will open them, swab them, question you, and there's a real chance they'll confiscate them. It's not because your spices are dangerous. It's because powders can be used to hide dangerous substances. Even baby formula can trigger secondary screening. Parents get stressed out. Agents get overwhelmed. The whole line gets delayed. The key is putting powders in original packaging whenever possible. If you transfer powders into plain containers, that's a red flag. Now on to cash. The silent airport revolution. It used to be normal to bring cash for everything. Tipping, meals, baggage fees. But in 2025, institutions are moving toward digital-only operations. Self-checkout machines are becoming the norm. Machines don't take cash anymore because it slows down operations and requires labor to refill and count money. Some airports even advertise that they're cash-free terminals. Passengers have gotten stranded because they couldn't pay excess baggage fees. Others missed flights because the kiosk wouldn't accept cash, and they couldn't find an ATM that worked. Even restaurants can refuse cash. So relying on cash in an airport now is like relying on a flip phone. Risky and outdated. Always carry a card and a digital payment option like UPI, Apple Pay, Google Pay, or contactless debit. Now let's go deeper into the clothing dress code issue. This is controversial because the rules aren't written clearly. Airlines want to maintain a comfortable environment for all passengers, but that description is so vague that almost anything can fall under it. In recent incidents, passengers wearing short tops were denied boarding because agents felt it was inappropriate. Others wearing political slogans were stopped due to potential conflict. Some passengers were asked to cover tattoos that agents deemed offensive. And yes, if you're denied, the airline does not have to refund you. What makes this tricky is that standards vary between airlines, countries, and even individual staff members. Some airlines are stricter in certain cultures or regions. If you travel through conservative countries, the dress code is even more enforced. So the safest approach is to dress modestly and avoid any clothing that could be interpreted as provocative, political, or offensive. Keeping a light jacket or shawl in your bag can save you from unexpected issues. Personal air purifiers might seem harmless. People started using them more after the pandemic. But some portable models emit ozone. Ozone can be harmful in enclosed spaces and can interfere with sensitive aircraft electronics. Airlines don't want to test which devices are safe. They simply confiscate anything that emits ozone. If your purifier is the ionic ozone producing type, leave it at home. Stick to masks or the plane's built-in filtration. Large electronics, gaming consoles, VR gear, big drones create massive delays. Security scanners struggle to see through dense electronics. VR headsets, for example, have multiple layers of lenses, sensors, wires, and plastic. PlayStations and Xbox consoles are extremely dense blocks of metal and circuitry. They practically guarantee a full bag search. And that search takes time, not just for you, but for the entire line behind you. Security may even force you to check them in if they can't clear them quickly. If you must bring them, pack them in a protective checked case. Or if carrying them on board, place them where they're easy to remove quickly. Don't bury them under clothes. Now let's revisit the smartphone dependency problem because it's bigger than most people realize. There are real stories of passengers being unable to board because their phone died. Some airlines won't print boarding passes at all anymore. The entire system relies on you scanning a QR code or using a digital identity. Even luggage drop kiosks require the app. And with airports pushing biometric boarding, your identity verification is tied to your device. Without a phone, you're essentially locked out of the system. It sounds absurd, but it's happening. That's why having a working phone is now as important as having a passport. We've now dived deeper into several of the banned restricted categories. But there's still more to uncover, especially the most surprising traveler mistakes and real-world scenarios causing people to get flagged at security. And let's keep going, because the real stories behind these new 2025 rules are even more shocking than the rules themselves. For example, take the shrinking carry-on size limits. People have been blindsided at airports this year because airlines aren't making big announcements about these changes. They're not emailing passengers saying, hey, by the way, your bag from 2019 is now too big. Instead, travelers only discover the issue when they're already stressed, late, or standing in the boarding line. Gate agents now walk around with portable sizers or even cardboard templates, stopping random passengers and checking their luggage dimension. And here's the kicker. Even if the bag technically fits inside the sizer, if the wheels or handles poke out even slightly, they can still make you gate check it. Many budget airlines have quietly reduced their allowed dimensions by just 1 inch. It sounds small, but that 1 inch makes thousands of previously acceptable suitcases fail the test. And because gate agents are now required to enforce the limit more strictly, they're not giving people past this time exception. Travelers have reported paying last-minute fees of $60, $90, even $120 right before boarding fees that could have been completely avoided if they had known the rules in advance. The airlines aren't breaking any laws, they're simply enforcing the fine print. But passengers feel tricked because these rules changed silently. Another category that catches travelers off guard in 2025 is edible souvenir. Every year, millions of people bring home snacks and food items from their trips, chocolates from Switzerland, spices from India, sweets from Turkey, cheese from France, dried meats from Spain, fruit from Thailand, but global customs rules have tightened dramatically because of rising agricultural threats. A single contaminated fruit can introduce a pest or disease that wipes out an entire region's farms. And because of these risks, customs officers are much more aggressive now. It doesn't matter if the food seems harmless. It doesn't matter if you've brought it before. If the food is fresh, unlabeled, or homemade, it's likely to be confiscated. Some passengers get offended when customs throws away their expensive cheese or sausages, but the rules are simple. Anything that can spoil or carry pests is now treated as high risk. Even packaged foods can be a problem if the ingredients include pork, seeds, raw dairy, or meat derivatives, and you're entering a country with strict import laws. And the most important rule, always declare food. You might think you'll save time by not declaring something small like a few snacks or spices, but if customs catches it, the penalty is far worse. Declaring food usually just means they take it away. Failing to declare it can lead to large fines and even travel record violations that stay on your file. Now let's connect all these rules to the bigger picture. Airports in 2025 are dealing with new challenges. Flights are full again, passenger volume is breaking records, and airports are struggling to keep up. Staffing is still lower than pre-pandemic levels. Security threats have evolved. Technology is changing faster than ever. And because of all this, airports are shifting towards stricter, more automated, more tech-dependent systems. This shift is why smartphone-based check-in is becoming standard. It's why cash is disappearing. It's why biometric boarding is taking over. And it's why gray area cases, like questionable clothing, unlabeled powders, battery sizes, or oversized luggage, result in quick decisions instead of long explanations. And here's something most travelers don't realize. Many of these rules aren't international. They're airline specific. Some carriers allow a 22-inch bag, others only allow 20 inches. Some allow power bank usage in flight, others ban it. Some allow you to check in with a printed pass, others require the app. The lack of uniformity is what creates chaos. Let's look at real scenarios happening across airports in 2025. A passenger headed to Europe with 3 jars of homemade HR pickle. They thought it was safe because it was sealed. Customs confiscated all of it because it wasn't factory made. The passenger got fined for not declaring it. Another traveler brought a gaming console in their carry-on. Because of the dense electronics, their bag kept triggering alarms. They were pulled into secondary screening. The console was tested, swabbed, and unpacked. They missed their flight by 10 minutes. A woman wearing a crop top and yoga pants was asked to cover up or be denied boarding. She had to buy an overpriced hoodie inside the airport just to get on the plane. A man traveling with smart luggage was shocked when check-in agents told him the battery wasn't removable. He had to abandon the suitcase and everything inside it because his flight was boarding in 30. Family carrying powdered baby formula was held up at security for nearly 25 minutes because the formula was in an unlabeled container. The delay caused them to miss their boarding group and lose their overhead space. A traveler relying on cash arrived at the baggage desk to pay a $40 fee, but the counter had gone cashless. The card reader malfunctioned. They missed their flight. Another passenger's power bank was in their overhead bag. During boarding, crew announced that all power banks must be moved into personal items. The bins were full, people were standing, struggling to open bags, items were falling everywhere, complete chaos. A tourist carrying durian wrapped tightly in layers thought it would be fine. Not only did the airline confiscate it, but the entire gate area had to be deodorized. Some airlines now treat strong-smelling foods as a cabin disruption hazard. These are not rare stories anymore, they're normal. So how do you protect yourself in 2020? You have to assume the rules aren't the same as last year or even last month. Airlines don't advertise these changes widely. Airports rarely post clear instructions. It's up to you to stay ahead of the curve. This means checking your airline's website before packing, reviewing your power bank's watt-hour rating, testing whether your smart luggage battery pops out, measuring your carry-on bag, packing powders carefully, staying prepared with a smartphone and digital payments, dressing neutrally, declaring all food. Because here's the truth about modern air travel. It's no longer about what's banned globally. It's about the dozens of small hidden rules that vary from place to place. Rules that can disrupt your trip instantly if you're not prepared. So now you're standing there at the checkpoint, your shoes half off, your boarding pass in your mouth because your hands are too busy unzipping the bag, and the TSA officer says those dreaded words, "Sir, I need to take a closer look at this." And suddenly, all the confidence you had about packing your meds just evaporates like you never read a single TSA guideline in your life. This is the exact moment when most travelers crack. They start explaining things no one asked about, like how they've been taking this medication for 5 years or how their doctor is on vacation but can confirm everything. But here's the truth, none of that matters if you unintentionally broke a 2025 rule you didn't even know existed. Because the changes this year aren't obvious, they're small, they're sneaky, they're the kind of rules that look totally harmless on paper but cause chaos when you're stressed at the airport at 5 a.m. And one of the most misunderstood changes has to do with how meds need to be separated. In 2024, many officers were pretty chill. You could throw your meds inside your bag and chances were good, no one cared. But in 2025, officers are told to flag bags more often if medications are mixed in with electronics, snacks, or thick items. Meaning if your bag is cluttered, you are practically asking for a secondary inspection. The meds aren't the issue, your packing style is. And travelers are getting blindsided by this because it doesn't show up in the official TSA statements. But if you talk to agents, they'll tell you something real. Clutter slows down scanning. When scanning slows down, lines get longer. When lines get longer, complaints rise. And when complaints rise, the pressure goes back on the agents. So in 2025, TSA basically said, flag messy bags fast. What does this mean for your medications? It means the chances of your bag being pulled have gone way up. And when your bag gets pulled, that is when officers start examining details more closely. Expired meds, they'll ask questions. Unlabeled liquids, suspicious. Pills floating loose, big problem. Repackaged tablets and a cute travel organizer, now a 2025 red flag. And guess what? Once you're flagged, you enter extra scrutiny mode and everything gets inspected more thoroughly. Now let's get into the real shocker. TSA confiscation is usually not because of what meds you brought, but how you brought them. This is the part people don't understand. No TSA officer is sitting there wanting to throw away your cholesterol medicine or your thyroid pills. They are not pharmacists. They don't care what disease you're treating. They care about one thing, security clarity. If something looks unclear on the scanner, they're trained to assume the worst until they prove the best. Unfortunately, medications, especially liquids, gels, aerosols, injectables, can look exactly like prohibited items on the screen. And there's one type of medication that's causing massive trouble in 2025, liquid medication refills and transfer bottles. People love transferring medicine into smaller containers. It makes sense, you want to travel light. But here's the issue. TSA agents can't verify the content if the original label isn't present. And this year, rules emphasize source verification. If you poured your medicated cough syrup into a random travel bottle with no pharmacy label, that is now grounds for confiscation. Even worse, if the medication is syrupy, thick, opaque, or dark in color, the scanner flags it automatically. And inhalers? They're allowed, but guess what? Counterfeit inhaler casings have become a 2025 smuggling trend, which means officers are inspecting inhalers more thoroughly than ever. If yours is dented, worn out, peeling, or missing the prescription sticker, it can get flagged as tampering. Again, not because they think you are smuggling something, but because TSA is being told to treat any altered medication container as potentially suspicious. Now here's something almost no traveler knows. TSA can confiscate medications even if they are medically necessary, if the container cannot be safely cleared.